Okay, so good afternoon to all of you. Very happy to be here with you for this session, which will be particularly rich. We have a really rich panel, and I expect a very interesting session ahead of us. The theme of the session, as you can see today on your screen, is unlocking the data potential, better data for better planning. We all know indeed that data in all sectors, and including, of course, in the mobility sector, will have a key role to play to enhance the efficiency, the resilience, and the sustainability of our economy and of the mobility sector. And this is also indeed one of the reasons why the European Commission is currently working to strengthen the data sharing architecture with the creation of European mobility data space in the context of the data strategy. This session today will look at challenges for operators, city authority, related to unlocking the potential of data, as well as looking at existing best practices and what could be learned, what could be duplicated in cities, but also in region and for local authorities. Please get engaged as much as possible in this session. You will see here on this housekeeping slide that you can ask questions. So go to the chat of the session and ask questions. You will have a little Q&A after each block of the session, and I will present to you how it will be organized. You also have a poll that you can already access. So to do this, go on the polls section of this session, asking you which organization you are from. It's important for the organizer to have an understanding. So please take part also in this poll. You can also see who's attending the session, and you will also be able to do networking after the session and visit the exhibition area. So the session today, as you can see, we have an important number of speakers, and it will be divided in 3 different blocks. So the first block with Rob Roemers, Robin Goix, and Franck Jacon, apologies for mispronouncing your names, will be focusing on data for public transport. We will have 3 presentations, very short Q&A. Once again, get involved, ask questions. We will pick up on them. Then we will move on to the second block with Elisabeth and Robin from Bike Citizen and Mobycon, where we will look at data for cycling. Again, short presentation, 10 minutes presentation, and then a Q&A. And then we will have a break. And we will have a third block where we will not look at data for a specific mode, but we will look at innovative services, new mobility services in city, freight, but also at what the Urban Innovative Action Initiative has been doing in several cities in Europe. So without further delay, we will now start with the first block of speakers. So we have with us Rob Roemers from the STIB, and Rob will be the first one to. Rob is the head of data and analytics at STIB. At STIB, together with his team, he's responsible for the reporting and analytics needs of the company. He will tell us more about data helping for bus usage. So Rob, I think you can now present, you can display your screen, and the floor is yours for a first 10-minute presentation.
Thank you, Victoire. As was said in my introduction, I'm Rob Roemers. I'm the head of data and analytics. And what we basically do is we try to support our business. Just a quick introduction of what our business is. So we are the public transport operator for Brussels. We run 4 metro lines, 18 tram lines, and 60 bus lines. We have an integrated network in the capital region of about 650 square kilometers. We have 2,200 stops, 1,263 vehicles on the road every day. We operate 7 days out of 7 and 20 out of every 24. We have about 9,420 employees. Of course, a majority of that are drivers. We drive about 84.3 million kilometers per year, and we transport more than 1 million people per day, so 433.5 million trips per year. Obviously, a little bit less now with COVID, where we've been hit like all of our colleagues in the sector as well, but it's slowly getting better again. So what we did is that a couple of years ago, we decided that data is really crucial within the organization. So we built a North Star vision on data and analytics. It's obviously a whole different conversation, but just to frame it a little bit, we built several personas like a top management, a middle management, or operational management. And we really said, how are we going to get to our goal in 5 years? We have obviously a lot of technical explanation behind that as well, but our main goal for the business is to say we want to have at least 1,500 users of those 9,000 people that we have working for us involved in data, mostly on the consumer side, obviously, but also in the self-service creation mode. We think we will need about 100 data analysts, obviously not 100 hardcore PhD data scientists, but people that really like digging into data. The team where I'm working with, so we have about 20 people now that are really about data enablement, making sure that the data becomes available to the business and that they can start using it. And something that we find very important is what we call the data lab community, where we build a symbiosis between IT and the business. So we really have a community. If you're looking at agile terms, it's something like a guild around analysts and people using data in our system. And that's really where we focused the hardest, because for us, I think the technology and the data part is the easy part. It's really the cultural change that's important. So we really put of all of that. And one of the things here is you can see the kickoff meeting that we had a couple of years ago with our data lab community. It's now become a monthly networking and training event where we worked in the beginning together with some people that we invited in from Hack Belgium, which were moderators, because our team is technical and the other team that was helping us on the business side was strategy. So that was a lot harder for us to really moderate these sessions. We were very happy about that because a little bit later, when the crisis started, we were happy to have people that were actually used to working online and that could help us with that. But before all COVID happened, we did a lot of training. Here you see some workshops where we're doing Power BI or analytics trainings, the IT and the business together. And we trained a lot of people that way. It's now even gone that these trainings are become normal. So they're inside of what we call STIB Academy. It's our internal training team has actually taken these over for us. We're not pulling those anymore as IT. We put in Microsoft Teams as a support, which was also something that we were very happy about. Once the crisis starts, we had everything actually online already ready for us to support. And we have something called Analytics Hub, which is a catalog where you can actually find all the reports and all the data that is available within the organization. So it's very easy if you come in as a new user, you can very quickly go in there and find what type of data is already available for you to use. So where are we today? It's nice to have an outlook. But we actually did a lot of projects already together with the business. And one of the projects that we really liked year or mid of this year was what we call Tokyo, which is something that we did as a response to the COVID crisis. We very quickly started to look at how can we help people and give information that we have that we currently don't communicate to our users. So the first thing we did is really look at what's the occupancy of our network, and from there communicate this in static pages on the website. So you can see that the colored stuff is the actual occupancy of a specific station, and then the gray was actually before COVID. That's the first thing that we did. We did that very quickly in a couple of weeks. And then I think in about a month and a half into the crisis, we had built this. So this is more dynamic now. It's built inside of the app. And the moment you use the app, you can immediately check for your line, for your station, what are the busy times that are available or not, when's the best time for you to move. So something that we very quickly were able to roll out because we had the bases already ready for that. And the next step that we're doing now is to make it interactive. Right now, it's still based on averages of the last days, but we have a lot of real-time sensor data, so we're trying to make that as interactive as possible now. We also did a mass pilot that we launched in the same period. So we have a working mass environment with a couple of partners in there just to test how that would work. And obviously data is behind that. It's giving us a lot of new insights as well. The other thing we're doing is ticket vending machines. So we revamped all our ticket vending machines, and we actually had a really nice contact with our supplier, where we made a deal that we have a full production copy of their database. Why every 15 minutes and not in real time? Because the machines don't really communicate in real time either. They update every 5 to 10 minutes, so there's no point there. But we built this completely in self-service for the business. So all the data is inside of the data lake, and the business can quickly, with Power BI, for example, connect to the reporting, but they also have on the smartphone all the data available. So now you can stand on the field in a station next to a vending machine and automatically already look at the sales report for that specific machine. So really enabled our business to do their own thing. Another thing that we're doing is a lot of more, this was more operational what we were talking about before. This is really more strategic data where we're looking at the autonomy of electric buses. So we're buying new buses to change all the diesel buses into electric. And we calculated, the strategy people calculated, we need 1.3 electrical bus for every diesel bus that we will replace. So we bought a couple now, or 30 of them that we're test driving. We took the data from those vehicles, and we're actually analyzing now to see if that 1.3 is actually realistic or not. And then we found some really common sense things like, for example, if you drive uphill, you use more energy than when you drive downhill. But it's actually important because if we want to hang on to that 1.3 buses that we need to make sure that we plan our lines in the same way, that we don't always drive uphill, or that we optimize that. We took the same data actually, and we're actually looking at the driving style, the quality of the driving style. Why do some people use more battery of the bus than others? Is it related to the driver? Is it related to the vehicle? Is it related to the route? We're really digging in to that data. We're also noticing that as you charge and decharge the battery over time, it actually gets less. Something that we should keep in mind as well. We really have at the highest level right now in the executive committee, people that are really using the data and actively asking for more analytics on those things that we are already doing. So it's really helping us to make better decisions and use data as a driver. In that sense, we're also realizing more and more that it's not only about having pure data. This is a very small project we did called Data Stories, where we took about 10 days and we started playing together with our marketing people. This is a satisfaction survey that we do every year. Usually the people that do the research also prepare the data set. So we asked them if we could show it to them, so it's not to make fun of them. This is what they prepared. So it's their PowerPoint saying, okay, there's some problem with the complaints that we're getting. We actually took 10 days and we hired a data designer, somebody that really understands how to use data to tell things. And he reworked this into this slide. So it's much, much, much clearer on what they wanted to do. The same thing if we took another example, I like this one. This is to see if people are feeling safe within the station. It has 3 years, different types of feelings. It was actually 2 slides because it's during the evening and during the day. So they needed a lot of information in a bunch of slides. We had our data designer look. He managed to do it in 1 slide, and it's a lot more easier on the eyes. And it communicates a lot better. So we're actually hiring people to help us with this, to really use data, also to communicate to our stakeholders in a better way. And like I said, it's really not a technical story. Obviously, we have a lot of technology and we're in IT, but it's an enabler. It's really about change management, about setting the right objectives for us. Just to make the circle completely round, this is the last photo on the right is the last photo of our data lab community that we did in person right before the sanitary crisis. And then afterwards, we just continued every month online without really losing a lot of attendance there. So it's a really interest for that in our group. The last thing that we're doing is, because we're seeing data is becoming more and more important, and especially in things like mobility as a service, we are launching a living lab. And it's a call to action for you people as well. We are looking for partner cities to later implement our solution, but we're also looking for people that are interested in data and know which kind of questions they would like to ask. or if you're in the private sector that is willing to work with us to set up this living lab. So we're going to do it in the center of Brussels. We have a nice square selected for that. There's budget. There's a request for proposal cycle that is just starting right now, and we're doing it together with a couple of partners, ourselves, the Central IT for Brussels, Brussels Mobility, which is the organizing authority, and Parking Brussels. And we even got some money to help us with that, and have a little video that will explain what we're trying to do. I need to switch to YouTube.
We walk a lot in Brussels, even more than in many similar European cities. Yet, moving around on foot seldom is considered to be a pleasure, and it sometimes even seems like an obstacle course. To improve this, we want to know how people are using the city. Measuring and analysing people flows can help with this. It can, for example, be used to define the shortest, safest, easiest, quietest routes to move from A to B on foot. It can also be used for other purposes, like promoting public transport, the planning of public works, and making events more accessible and safe. Invitation Open Client Dialogue. We are currently defining the requirements of an automated people flow management system. Once the solution is finished, in about 2 years, people flow data can be shared and open for different parties, like you. Then, just one more thing. We do not know what data you would like to have and why. So, if you would like to start working with Brussels people flow data in the future, help us by transmitting your questions and remarks via our client dialogue.
So that's my part of the presentation. If you have questions, you can put them into the chat, or I think, Victoire, we will take questions after our colleagues have presented as well.
Indeed, thank you so much, Rob. Very interesting. We will first have another presentation from Robin Goix and Franck Jacon from the example of Clermont-Ferrand, and then we will take question. I see that there's already question in the chat, but I will first give the floor for a common presentation of what has been done in Clermont-Ferrand. Robin is a generalist engineer specializing in transport planning, modeling and data collection. You also have programming skills, which you use to design and develop innovative applications in these topics. And Franck is the head of the studies department within the marketing and commercial department of the Clermont-Ferrand PTO. So Franck and Robin, the floor is yours for a 10-minute presentation, and then we will take questions from the floor.
Thank you, Victoire. So I'm going to share my screen now. It should be working. Yeah. So this presentation, as Victoire said, will be a joint presentation with Franck Jacon and Anthony Patana from T2C, which is a public transport operator for the agglomeration of Clermont-Ferrand in France. And the purpose is to present a project that we conducted together last year, and which was a bit unusual for SYSTRA, as the objective was not only to deliver expertise in transport, but also to deliver specific transport planning tools for T2C. So what created this project opportunity is based on two more or less recent technological changes. The first one is a wide development of web app that provide new ways of collaborations from any web browser with rather user-friendly interfaces. And the second one is a recent rise of Python, the programming language, that brought to both programmers and engineers a large flexibility, performance, and some kind of a community effect, because a lot of Python code is shared through open source libraries containing efficient functions and algorithms, especially for data-oriented applications. And this allows to build quickly light and efficient tools, including traffic models, but not only. And those tools can easily be interfaced with other apps, such as web services. So these two technological changes are providing an opportunity to do transport planning a bit differently, as we can now provide directly customized and intuitive tools to operators and make them more broadly involved into the process of transport planning and into the use of their transport data. I'm going to let Franck and Anthony from TDC introduce their need and project now.
T2C is the public transport operator at Clermont-Ferrand. To begin, some figures about our company. Our network includes 1 tram line with a fleet of 30 tramways and 27 bus lines with a fleet of 200 buses. Last year, we counted 33 million trips made by our travelers, and 850 people work at T2C. Our public transport authority is the project owner of BRT lines, B and C, and T2C is the technical project owner assistant, and we work on the bus network restructuring, and we also have to give an expertise on BRT lines and related projects, like RTPI or IVL. We must have easy-to-use study tools to optimize our bus network in order to be efficient and attractive for passengers. The bus network must meet performance and efficiency targets. We are currently working with Franck on the restructuring of the bus network, triggered by shift towards e-mobility, and we need a tool to help us to make the right choices. Optimize bus routes, choose the level of service, matching travelers' expectation, compute different KPI, cost, population served by bus, number of buses, in order to compare scenarios and meet project objectives, and make the most out of our traffic demand survey data.
Okay, so from these explicit needs, we designed a solution based on 2 in-house tools, STIB and Quetzal, that I'm going to present briefly, while Franck and Anthony will detail how they use those. What we call STIB is a public transport network planning and restructuring solution. It's a web application, and it allows to handle a digital replica of a PT network. So you can visualize your network, you can edit the stops, the routes, the timetables, the speed, and it's going to give you immediately some insight on your network, because it automatically computes different KPI as covered jobs, covered populations, or commercial vehicle kilometers. Because it's a web app, the interface is very easy to use, and it facilitates collaboration because multiple users can work on the same project only with an internet connection. I will leave, again, Franck and Anthony detail why they chose STIB and how they are using it now.
In a few words, why did we choose STIB to help us? We chose STIB because it's simple, easy to use, and with an user-friendly interface. It's also quick. Several people can work on a scenario, and it was very useful for our team. It's accessible from anywhere through a website, and it was very useful during the lockdowns. It's easy to share data formats. Additional use with Quetzal. Robin will present this other tool to you later. And finally, it meets our work expectation and helps us to make the right decision. So we choose STIB for all of these reasons. With STIB, you can edit the digital replica of the public transport network, as you can see. You can quickly create a bus line and the bus stops, and you can see on the map. You can also easily define the level of service on each time period with an average time. And you can also display different layers on the map depending on your needs. Population density, job density, stop catchment areas, or satellite view, for example. You can also automatically compute KPIs at different levels. As we can see, after defining our level of service, we can view different KPIs for all the bus network, or just one line or one stop. And it was very useful to compare different scenarios. You can have catchment population, catchment jobs, or potential passengers, for example. But be careful with the unit of works, vehicles, kilometers, or hours, because it's just an estimation. ITSIM is not a tool of scheduling, and it doesn't optimize the means, so the result is not exact.
So as I discussed, ITSIM was only the first part of the solution that has been implemented. The second part is Quetzal. It's an open source library in Python for data processing and transport modeling. So it's a library which is developed by SYSTRA. It's hosted on GitHub. So if you're familiar with GitHub, you can have a look right now. It's there, it's available. And it relies on this ecosystem of open source libraries. I listed a few of them here. The Pandas, Scikit-learn, and Shapely. It's not comprehensive, but it's very, very useful in our work. And on top of those libraries, Quetzal provides a data structure to efficiently handle transport data. And alongside this data structure, many algorithms to perform transport data processing and to build customized 4-step models. I'm going to show a quick example of one algorithm made available in Quetzal, which is a network matching algorithm. It's very useful when you are handling network data coming from different sources because you must know those networks never match. So for instance, here on the left, we have a road network taken from OpenStreetMap. On the right, some GTFS data on the Paris area taken from the Open Data. And if you superimpose both, they obviously do not match. So it's a left picture. And this means that you are not able to see, to know what road is taken by each bus route. So within Quetzal, there is an algorithm that allows you to project this GTFS data onto the road network. And afterwards, you can see that both networks do match. And so you're able to say for each road what bus route is passing by, and you can display, for instance, the route density per road. So it's just a slight example. You can do much more data processing and demand modeling with Quetzal, but this is not the purpose of the presentation. If you're interested, you can have a look at it on GitHub or on the link that was shown here. I put it in the chat afterwards. There is a major drawback with Quetzal is that it does not have a graphic interface because it's only a Python library, and therefore it cannot be used by non-experts. However, because it's a library, it comes with an extreme flexibility, and we managed to build some interface with ITSIM for T2C to design a customized tool. And we followed this approach. So first, we conducted a design workshop with T2C to determine what data they had available, what were their objectives, what type of inputs and outputs they wanted, in order to specify a methodology for the tool. We implemented, so SYSTRA implemented the tool, and then delivered it to T2C with a specific training. The main idea of the tool was to combine Quetzal with ITSIM through GTFS data to benefit from ITSIM nice interface while providing the added value of demand forecasting with Quetzal. And I'm going to leave Franck and Anthony discuss the use of Quetzal.
To define your scenario, you have to complete one Excel sheet with inputs like speed coefficient, frequency, or population growth. After completing your file, you can analyze different outputs for each time period, like boarding and lighting per stop, bus load, passengers per kilometer, travel time between two locations, or transfer rate. As you can see, it's very easy to define a scenario in order to use Quetzal. Thanks to the result, you can compare, for example, accessibility. To present the result to our public transport authority, we use a geographic information system, and as you can see, we can create different maps. In this case, redder the area is, longer the journey time to reach the city center from this city is. It's very interesting to see the improvement of the new bus network and to show maps during various meetings.
So to conclude this joint presentation, I will briefly summarize the main points that we presented. We've seen eTSIM, which is a web app designed for transport planning. Also Quetzal, which is an open source Python library for demand modeling and data processing. And we thought that combining both allowed to create a full application for handling transport supply scenarios, KPI computation, and traffic forecasts. And this was made possible because of the availability of open source environments and libraries on which different technical solutions can easily be built. Thank you for your attention, and I think if you have questions, we'll be able to answer them.
Thank you so much, Robin, Franck, and Anthony. And I would also invite Rob to turn on your as well, so that we can answer the question. I see that in the chat, we already have a direct question for Robin and Franck and Anthony about eTSIM, whether it's intended to be used user alone or whether you need also to have a tool designer consultant present. Already this first question.
eTSIM is designed to be used alone on its own. So by itself, it's already a web application, and you can use it just on its own. What we did with T2C was to enhance the capacity of eTSIM by combining it with Quetzal to have traffic forecast, because it's not something that is within eTSIM, because you need some a more advanced demand forecasting model to have those.
And there's also another question about the reliability, robustness of the results that you have through eTSIM. If you can comment also a bit more.
Maybe
how
Anthony, you have a word on?
How detailed is the information on reliability of the results? Apologies.
Okay, so it depends on the data you are putting within eTSIM. So for the different KPI, if for instance you can have some job coverage and population coverage, those results will be based on the accuracy of the data you will have put within eTSIM, so on your different population and job layers. And then for units of rocks, it's as Anthony and Franck said, it is not a scheduling tool, so you will not have as efficient results as you can have with a specific tool. But for quickly testing different scenarios, it's an accuracy that we are judging sufficient for this.
Rob, you've already been. Oh, sorry, apologies.
Sorry.
Franck. Yeah, no, go ahead, Franck. You wanted to complement.
It depends on your need, as Robin says, because it's not a scheduling tool, as we said before. But you can have catchment population, catchment jobs, or potential passengers, and you have a lot of information, very interesting. But you have to be careful of the units of rock, like vehicle, kilometer, or hours. But it's a very precious tool.
I was going to add that Rob, you've already been answering quite a lot of questions through the chat, so I might not come back to them because more are popping up. Specifically, a new question from Suzanne. Actually, maybe Rob, you can answer first, and then Franck and Anthony, if you want to take this question as well. Whether moving towards as a service solution, which pro and cons do you see towards moving towards mobility as a service solutions, for example?
I think there's a lot of advantages in moving to as a service models, because mobility is not done on an island, even if you are just a city. There's a lot of more mobility players than just public transport, and it's also the reason why we're doing, for example, the Munstrom project that I showed the video about. It's to really learn how do people move throughout the entire system and not just through a part of the system. If we really want to redesign how people move or help them redesign how they move and get to a modal shift, we really need all those different data sets on the pro side. On the con side, I think it's difficult. It's not a technical solution. To me, the main problem is a trust solution. Everybody is always happy to standardize as long as you take their standard, and everybody is happy to be the central pin inside of the network, but nobody is so happy to be on the sideline. So we already started, again, like this Munstrom and the Data Lab community that we're doing inside of Brussels. It's really that, to start building those, I think, human relations that you need to have amongst each other before you get to the technical API and data sharing agreements that are in essence a lot easier, but we need to trust each other before we will do that, I think.
Maybe Franck and Robin and Anthony, you want to take this question as well. So MaaS, but not only MaaS, Suzanne indeed highlights it also, software as a service or data as a service. So the as a service systems. What are the pros and cons in moving towards those solutions?
Yeah, so I rather agree with what Rob just said. It's part of the solution, but not the only solution. It's going to help to have more intermodality into the way we see mobility, into we have mobility, but it's only part of the solution because it's just another technological tool.
Franck, do you want to add something?
At Clermont-Ferrand, we are thinking and working on the project, but we don't have a MaaS now. But we are working on the subject, and maybe in the few months we were working hard about this subject. But it's not the solution, but it could be a solution for our passengers.
Thank you so much. And maybe a last, just being aware of time because we will have to move on, but a last question for Rob. How your data lab interact with all public transport operators, and whether you help with route design.
Yeah, I just saw the question. So what we are trying to do right now is, because we have to build the trust and we are all public service, we decided to first only do it with public administrations. In Brussels, the mobility network or the mobility ecosystem is split up between the transport operator, between the planning authority, between somebody else that is responsible for roads and for the traffic lights. So we're trying to first build a community there. So we can be comfortable with each other and that we know what we want as a public service. The next step, which will probably happen soon, would be academics, to let in the universities and the researchers. And then in another step, look more at the public sector and different transport operators. So for now, we're not actively working with other public transport operators. There are a couple of initiatives in Belgium, because we're really just talking Belgium, we're not talking Europe. In the different public transport operators for Belgium, because there's 4 for Belgium to do a joint ticket, for example, for the whole country, but also for a MaaS application. You don't want to have 3 applications or 3 MaaS applications that you need to use to go across the country. It should be able to do that from 1. But there is the same thing. It's really just negotiations that are started based on the relations we already had on some previous things, because our data lab community, I think it's something that came after, for example, other initiatives that we did 2-3 years ago, where we tried to build a common route planner, because before there was not even one route planner for Belgium. There is now a common one in open source. So we kind of continue in that tradition when we're talking about data.
Okay, thank you so much to all of you for your input. I'm afraid we now have to move to the second block with Elisabeth from Bike Citizen and Robin from Mobycon. So once again, thanks a lot. And we move on to the block on unlocking the potential of data for cycling. So if Elisabeth and Robin Cline can join us,
Hi.
that would be great. Hello, Elisabeth. Elisabeth, you will actually be the first one to present on this block for unlocking the potential of data for cycling. You are managing director at Bike Citizen, and you're an expert in the field of promoting cycling mobility digitally. You work together with cities and municipalities using Bike Citizen's innovative app and web solution to motivate people going by bike and increasing the city's cycling share. So I give you the floor for 10 minutes, the same rule, and then we will have time Q&A. So please also ask questions in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. So today I would like to present a project we're doing together with the region of Hannover. So Claudia, if you could switch to the first slide, please. The region of Hannover, for the region of Hannover, cycling is an important factor for climate-friendly mobility and to reduce emissions. So we did work together for the region, with the region, as they developed in 2014 a priority network for cycling commutes. And the aim of that was to connect the 21 municipalities in the region, which we can see on this slide. And along with this objectives, along with this plan goes the objective to close the gaps in the cycling infrastructure. And so in order to make cycling more visible, the region of Hannover turned part of its digital. We can now move on to the next slide. They're making cycling more digital for the region of Hannover meant on the one hand to add more counting stations to really be able to count cyclists and make the number visible. On the other hand, the region of Hannover started a cooperation with us and implemented the Bike Citizens app as official local cycling app to collect data and provide a service to citizens to be able to start quite easily finding their cycle-friendly routes through the region, because we know like the build infrastructure is not done from today to tomorrow. This takes quite longer, and meanwhile there is a need to also provide cycle-friendly routes in order to increase the cycling share. So if we can go to the next slide, when it comes to cycling, it's very often data is a bottleneck. So there are not that many cycling data available. And to answer questions like when and where people are riding, they sound quite simple, but very often there is no data. And very often city planners also ask us for, okay, do you have any cycling data? How do we get cycling data? And what do we get out of applications like the Bike Citizens app? So that's the reason why I want for now to start one step before and say, okay, in order to have data to analyze, we need to collect data. And there's the question how to motivate daily riders to track their daily rides. We can move on to the next slide. And this is where Bike Citizens provides 4 different kinds of categories. On the first side, like I already explained, we have a cycling app that helps people, or especially people that want to start cycling, to find cycling-friendly routes that connects people to urban or local events that are in the cities and campaigns that promotes and makes cycling more fun. And then there are 3 different campaigns which also motivate to collect data and to track urban daily rides, not for fitness or sportive usage, but when daily riding with the bike. So for one, there's a benefit system which is rewarding cyclists, and it is not about collecting kilometers only, it is about going on a regular basis by the bike. The second is a crowdsourced feedback platform, the Ping If You Care platform, which is not just a reporting platform, but which collects a lot of conflicts that might be reason for many other people to not use the bike in an urban area. And the third campaign is using cycling or cycling commutes and promote cycling within companies, because like the commute to the work is a very important part of our daily mobility. And there we have some campaigns to engage within the companies and working there. And for the region of Hannover, if we switch to the next slide, we did provide, apart from the cycling app, a bike benefit campaign to reward the cyclists, which was a little bit challenging this year, concerning to the COVID crisis, but we did host a campaign from the mid of July until end of October. And like the system shows, people can collect bike coins, dineros, sustainable currency model, by going on a regular basis throughout the week. Of course, there are some gamification elements in it as well. So if people do very long rides or go very often, they can earn extra points. But apart from rewarding the cyclists, the campaign also includes the local economy. So the coins and points cyclists earn, they can be redeemed within the inner cities of the region. And so every cyclist gets quite an instant reward or benefit by cycling, which is a very nice effect. And apart from that, we learned when developing the campaign in 2016 together within an ESA program, that many people rather prefer to donate, to do something good, to donate their points. So we always try to have a charity project, and so we did with the region of Hannover. So some of the money has been donated, or some of the points turned into money have been donated to a local project. If we go to the next slide. Throughout the 3 months, we had lots of local benefits, from bakeries to climbing malls to cycling services, and the people collected dineros or bike points that add up in a value of around 60,000 euros throughout this period. And when we go to the next point, and if we ask what does this make with the cycling data, how did the region of Hannover collect data during this time? We can switch now to the next slide. Okay, can we see the cycling data slide for Hannover? Hello? Okay.
Is this not it?
No, the next slide, please.
This one?
And there should be heat maps.
Then it's the first one.
There should be 3 maps from 2018, 2019, and 2020.
Yeah, it's the one that is on. I don't know if everyone else can see it, but
it seems like the presentation is stuck with the benefits.
No, I think it's a problem with your...
Okay, sorry. Okay, if you see it, I'm happy. I kind of get stuck.
Yeah, okay, everyone.
I can do
Go
it.
ahead.
I can do it without seeing it. So, okay, I have you see the Hannover cycling data. There are 3 different pictures starting from 2018. This was before the cooperation. In 2019, we provided the application so that people could use and track their daily rides. And in 2020, there was the campaign, and we can see quite good how the data we collected in the region of Hannover increased year by year. Then we can switch to the next one. There should be a number of users. I still see the bike benefit slide, but I hope you see the users. And this is just a stat I wanted to share, because it also shows if a region or city wants to collect data, how campaigns and services, digital services, can help to collect data. Within the active user we have so far, there was like one boost when starting the cooperation, and another one when the bike benefit campaign starts. And as I mentioned before, we are collecting urban daily rides, and what makes a ride an urban daily ride. This is also something, like I said, it's not about fitness rides and not about collecting lots of kilometers and going on high speed. In the region of Hannover, our average trip length is about 6.7 kilometers, and 80% of all the rides tracking are under 10 kilometers, which is about in the range of daily movements happening there. On the next slide, it's about what kind of information or user profiling do you get out from technical data. There should be 2 user profiling informations. So if I have a look at how does a EU average cyclist behave and how do I match this category? You see, like for the region of Hannover, about 71% of all the users we are having are acting like EU average. And also do ask yourself, how many co-bikers do I have, or that might like go on very high speed or do very long rides, which has an effect on the data that we are collecting. We see within the user profiling for the region of Hannover, this only is about 5%. Then switching to the next slide, the value of GPS data and counting stations. So the counting stations allow detailed long-term observation of bicycle traffic, and in comparison or in extent to that, the GPS data we are collecting with our application service gives information on the traffic volume per segment. It has a quite high intensity of information, and it gives back information about exact routes people are taking, about origin and destinations, about waiting times and speeds. And what we did together with the region of Hannover, we did to combine counting stations with the GPS data we tracked. Now we should move one slide ahead that says what happens when combining them. So on the one hand, we see an overall heat map of the tracks we did in the region of Hannover. On the other side, we see the counting stations that are in the region of Hannover, and we try to set the Bike Citizens app user tracks we have in relation to the counting station, which sounds more easy than it might be. So we had a lot of factors to include, for example, how relevant are the counting stations, how do users behave, how do cyclists behave, how do Bike Citizens users behave. And we worked together with UNM Research to find an algorithms to consider all these factors, and also apart from that, external factors like how does weather sensitivity influence the behavior of cyclists, how do construction bases influence behavior. And therefore we get quite a good match of the extrapolation of Bike Citizens data to counting stations. And this is where we are standing now, and this is where it still gets very interesting that the region of Hannover is now using, on the one hand, our cycling data, and on the other hand, the estimations, and really put it for first time into their modelings and simulations, and compare it also with other means of transport. This is where we're standing now, and I hope next time I can tell or share more of these outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth. Super interesting as well. Now we should also have Robin Kleine from the BEATS project from Mobycon. So Robin, yeah, you are with us, great. So Robin, you're project manager of the EU-funded bicycle and ITS project BEATS. You work on behalf of the province of Overslees, apologies, and you're a lead partner of the project. So consultant at Mobycon, and you specialize in smart and sustainable mobility, cycling project inside and outside the Netherlands. So Robin, now the floor is yours to present a bit more this BEATS project.
Yes, thank you, Victoire, for the introduction, and thanks for having me. The presentation should be on right now. If it's not, please let me know. But Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm going to tell you something about the Bicycles and ITS or BITS project. The project is an Interact NSR project, so it's co-funded by the European Union. And we have about 5 million budget in total to invest in cycling ITS and data. The project started in January 2019 and will end in March 22. As province of Overijssel, we are the lead partner in the project. From the Netherlands, we also have the city of Zwolle, which actually happens to be the city with the highest cycling use in the world. So it's a good one to have on the team. From Belgium, we are working with the province of Antwerp, the city of Bruges, the University of Vives, and Cycling Industries Europe. From Germany, we have Baron Mobility and the University of Oldenburg. From Denmark, the city of Aarhus, and from the UK, the East Riding of Yorkshire Council. So what we are doing within BITS is basically using new technologies and data to make cycling more attractive. And this approach is based on the bicycle pyramids that we developed at Overijssel. And the idea of the pyramid is to show and structure the needs and preferences of cyclists. So at the bottom, as the foundation, you've got safety and reliability. On top of that, speed and convenience, and well, in the upper part, comfort and experience. And we do that with all kinds of ITS applications in cycling. Some examples you can see on the right. These are also all in the project. So for example, floating bike data, which is basically the bicycle version of floating car data. That's mostly generated by navigation systems, but also what we call smart bike parking. So what it means is that bicycles that are parked within a facility are somehow being registered, being detected, either by sensors or cameras or whatever system. And the data is then, on the one hand, being used to inform cyclists about the availability of spots, either in the facility, on street, through an app or API. But the data is also being used by management and by policymakers to better plan and to use for their work. And when we started the project, we really felt the need to get a good overview of what's out there. So the solutions that were out there and the possibilities. So we started with an inventory of these solutions. We basically made a report with approximately 100 cycling ITS products and services. And we saw that it was quite well received. So we're now looking into creating a product and services directory. So this would be a live version of the report we made. And it will probably be a website, but we're still looking into that. And last year we also did the cycling ITS survey. So all the participating regions and cities I just mentioned, we did a questionnaire and asked people, first of all, what their mobility behavior is and what their attitude towards cycling is, but more specifically, how they think of various kinds of cycling ITS and what their attitude towards those is. The results seem quite promising. We're still analyzing them, but seems promising so far. So within the project, we're going to implement in total about 24 ITS implementations. I don't think we have time. Well, I'm sure we don't have time to go through them all right now. But as you can see, it's quite a big variety. So some consider parking, some influence flow, safety. You've got some nudging, and the colors indicate the phase we're in right now. So some of them are currently operational, and a lot of them are being prepared right now or being planned, and most of them are planned to go online during the first half of 2021. Some are a bit delayed because of the COVID situation, and they require contact with people, which is not something people see as desirable right now. But we're expecting most to go online in the first half of 2021. One example of such an implementation is the smart camera system. We've done this in Antwerp and in Zwolle. And what the cameras do is they detect the mode, the speed, and the direction of people on a junction or a specific section. And then we use a machine learning trained algorithm to analyze that and to really get a detailed insight in the use and the risks of a junction or a section. And in the case of Antwerp, they use this information to redesign the junction. But it can also be used to evaluate measures or, yeah, for other things. Basically the idea of the project, as I mentioned, is that we use ITS to make cycling more attractive, to improve cycling conditions. And something quite interesting about these ITS applications is that they almost inherently also generate data themselves. So one of the big questions for us was what can we do with this data, and how can we do it? So what we do in general is we try to collect the data from the ITS so that the ITS generates, and on the one hand use it to feed services for cyclists. So think about information provision, things about the availability of parking spots, route advice, things like that. And on the other hand, the data is being used to get a better insight in cyclist behavior and usage. And that information is then being used to improve policies and conditions. So we're trying to create a loop with, on the one hand, measures that impact cycling directly, but on the other hand, generate data, and the data is then being used to, again, influence cycling or improve the conditions. And this loop and this combination really turned out to be one of the most important concepts within the project. Our colleagues in Antwerp call this the Data Reflex, to be able to, on the one hand, spot the opportunities for data, see the opportunities, but also know how to capitalize on them. And as I said, this turned to be one of the most important things in the project. So there's quite a lot of attention for the data within the BITS project, and to facilitate the use and availability of cycling data, we decided to start an open platform for sharing and finding the data. It's called the Cycle Data Hub. We're currently testing it, and we're expecting it to be fully operational in the first half of 2021. And with this Cycle Data Hub, we also try to contribute to the delegated regulation on multimodal travel information services. On the one hand, by giving a boost to cycling data in general, but moreover by working with the various national access points and trying to include their data on the Cycle Data Hub on the platform, to create kind of an international thematic platform where cycling data can be found. And it's not only about finding the data, but also about sharing experiences, best practices, and inspiring each other. So this was the project in a nutshell. I tried to compress it a little bit to stay within the time limits. But if you're interested in the project, about knowing more, we've got a newsletter, so you can subscribe, you can follow us on social media, and you can always email me. So thanks for listening, and I'll be happy to answer questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Robin, and thanks for sticking to the time, because we have already quite a lot of questions, both for you and Elisabeth, who's back. Great. Perfect. So maybe I start with Elisabeth. You had question on, you have 21 jurisdiction in the project, but were there initial hesitations, or did they jump in straight away? Was the first question.
They jumped in quite a way, or at least they had to, like, for the organization in the region of Hannover, there's like the city authorities, which is the city of Hannover, and there's the region of Hannover, our cooperation partner, and they are covering all the 21 municipalities. And there were some thoughts about, okay, how would people react if we say we are collecting data? But the feedback was very positive, and it was not an issue. It was more, even brought up more engagement to be part of the project.
I have a question again for you, Elisabeth, is whether you checked the reliability of GPS data on the basis of each bike counters, and if so, which methodology was used?
Yes, we did look at all the counting stations. There were a few who we had too less data to really do extrapolation, and there was quite a complex method. So at first we did look at all the counting stations. We did look how long did they already collect data, how far do they go back, how long do we have data. We also compared two cities. We are having collected data in the city of Vienna for several years now, so we have a total different databases. Like for the region of Hannover, I explained we started really collecting more data from the start of the project. And also we learned that different data collection and different cities have kind of different impact. Like for the city of Vienna, the whole bunch of data is more important than like recent data. For the region of Hannover, the recent data was more accurate than looking back even into the years where we had no cooperation. So yes, basically we took that all in account.
Maybe I'll move on to Robin and then I'll come back to you, Elisabeth, because there were more questions for you as well. But Robin, as you explained, the project is based indeed on extensive ITS technologies. And one of the questions was whether those were already in place or were they established for the purpose of the project?
Yeah, well, both really. I think most of them are put in place because of the project. And we build on some existing initiatives as well. So let's say, for example, in the province of Overijssel, we were using an app to stimulate cycling to work. And that app was already being used, but now we put it in the BITS project as well. And we're looking into how we can make better use of the data and how we can create a bigger impact with the project. But in a lot of other cases, we're also implementing the ITS. Of course, it's not about, we're not trying to just test the technology, but we really want to use ITS that impact cycling in a positive way in the specific context. And we have a big variety of regions and cities with different cycling conditions. As I said, Zwolle as the highest bicycle use in the world. So it's something different than the East Riding of Yorkshire Council in the UK, and different technologies are needed. But to go back to the question, both, yeah.
And maybe another point on you mentioned that your colleagues from Antwerp were talking about this data reflex. And Wolfgang Pontweijer is asking whether there's a danger with this data reflect to create to arrive to biased conclusions, basically.
Maybe he can explain a little bit more what.
Yes, maybe Wolfgang, if you would like actually to take the floor and to elaborate a bit on this question. I'm not sure if attendees can actually take the floor. They can. You can click join. Maybe in the meantime, I'll ask another question to Elisabeth, and then we. Elisabeth, there were a question asking whether you are able to differentiate bike use for individual mobility or other uses, for example, deliveries. If it's possible to do so.
Yes, we did have a look of the app usage of app users. So how do they use the app? How often? We call them the power users. And also we consider the effect that power users are not bringing in more accuracy when it comes to urban daily mobility. So we did not separately analyze them, but we did took that in consideration and kind of eliminated the factor that there might be very strong users. I hope this makes sense, or what?
Yes, no, it does. Apologies, I thought my internet was blocking. But Wolfgang, you're with us now. Do you want to elaborate a bit on the potential bias conclusion, how you see it?
Okay, thank you for detailing the question. It is, I mean, if you measure the effects via the ITS measure itself, and then you evaluate more or less the measure where you derive the data. So this is kind of a it's similar like a self-guiding system. So for example, you just measure all the people that are using the ITS stuff, whatever it is. Yeah. So you don't measure all the other people and so on. So I'm thinking about. I think it is a very good idea, and we're all looking out for data sources. We have to use everything we have, but on the other hand, we have to be very careful, from my point of view, because yeah, this is a constrained data source, and therefore I was asking if there is a danger to be biased in some way. That's it.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for explaining. Yes, I agree with you that if you use data from the implementation to evaluate the implementation itself, that might lead to biased data. That's not how we evaluate our measures. I think the idea of the data reflex, or what we try to achieve with it, is mostly making sure that the data that is generated with the ITS can also be used for other purposes, and that it's the things that need to be arranged to do so, which there are, that you take care of them, and that you see the opportunities and know how to capitalize on them. If it comes to using the data from a certain application to evaluate it, I think it's indeed very important to know very well what your data represents and what it doesn't represent. I think a good example is Strava data, where mostly used, at least in the Netherlands, but I think outside as well, by people who cycle for sports. And there's some really good value in the data if it comes to assessing the network and looking at the delays, things like that. But you cannot say it's representative and that it gives you a good picture of how many people are cycling where. So I think to summarize, the most important thing is to know very well what's in the data and what's not, so you also know how to use it well. And I think this is an important part of what we call the data reflex.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, fine.
Thank you so much. And also maybe Elisabeth, indeed, there was another question on whether Strava metadata is now for free. And you had an offer to access to the region of Hannover.
Yes, I did know that. And yes, sounds like a promising offer, because I thought of it myself. I know from other research projects where, for example, Strava data and Bike Citizens data have also been compared in terms of how accurate are the databases. And so, yes, that sounds very interesting for me to also do it for the region of Hannover. So maybe we can come back to this, because from other research, of course, I know Strava has massive data, but like Robin said, the focus is quite different. For example, when it comes to Bike Citizens data in Vienna, counting stations that are on leisure trips, we don't have that accuracy like when it really is about urban inner city mobility, for example. And so I would be curious how the data would relate here.
Yeah, super. I don't see any other comments or question in the chat, and I think we just just on time for the break. So thank you so much to both of you. It was a very rich presentation, super interesting. So now we have a half an hour break. We come back at 3:45. As I explained, the third block of this session will not be focused on a specific mode, but on new innovative solution, new mobility services in Antwerp, also looking at what is being done in Région. on freight and activities of UIA. So thank you again, and we have half an hour break. We see you after your coffee at 3:45. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.